The story begins in Frederick, Colorado, with Christopher Watts, a 33-year-old oil and gas operator, and his 34-year-old wife, Shanann Watts. They had been married for nearly 6 years and were raising 2 young daughters, 4-year-old Bella and 3-year-old Celeste. At the time of their disappearance, Shanann was also 15 weeks pregnant with their son, whom they planned to name Nico. On the surface, their lives, as portrayed on social media, appeared idyllic. Shanann was an active presence online, sharing heartwarming photos and videos of her family, often promoting Thrive by Lavelle, a health and wellness product line she sold. Their home, a 5-bedroom house in a quiet suburban neighborhood, seemed to be the embodiment of the American dream. However, beneath this veneer of perfection, tensions were brewing. Financial struggles had plagued the couple in the past, leading to a bankruptcy filing in 2015. More recently, their relationship had reportedly become strained, with arguments becoming more frequent. Shanann had spent the preceding 6 weeks in North Carolina with her daughters, visiting her parents, while Christopher remained in Colorado. She had only returned home in the early hours of Monday, August 13, 2018, having been dropped off by a friend, Nicole Atkinson, who was concerned when Shanann did not respond to her calls later that morning. The alarm was raised when Nicole Atkinson, unable to reach Shanann, arrived at the Watts home around noon on August 13. She found Shanann's car in the garage, her purse and phone inside, but no sign of Shanann or the girls. Growing increasingly worried, Atkinson contacted Christopher Watts, who was at work. He immediately returned home. Upon entering the house, they found no trace of Shanann, Bella, or Celeste. It was a scene of eerie normalcy. The girls' car seats were in Shanann's car. Their beloved blankets were on their beds, but the family was gone. Christopher Watts quickly contacted the police, reporting his family missing. The initial police response was swift, treating the case as a missing persons investigation. Body camera footage from the Frederick Police Department showed a seemingly distraught Christopher, visibly anxious, allowing officers to search his home. He claimed he had left for work early that morning, around 5:15 a.m., while his wife and daughters were still asleep. He stated that he had tried to call Shanann later that morning but received no answer. During the initial police questioning, he maintained his innocence, portraying himself as a worried husband and father desperate for his family's safe return. The disappearance quickly gained national attention, fueled by Christopher's tearful televised pleas for his family's return. In interviews with local news channels, he appealed directly to the public, expressing his profound grief and confusion. "I just want them back," he tearfully stated in one interview. "I just want them to come home." He described Shanann as an amazing mother and insisted that the girls were his world. He even claimed he believed they might have run off with someone else, although he couldn't imagine why. However, inconsistencies in his story, coupled with his strangely calm demeanor at times and his eagerness to participate in media interviews, began to raise red flags for investigators and the public alike. The lack of forced entry, the presence of Shanann's belongings, and the complete absence of the family pointed towards a scenario far more sinister than a simple disappearance. As the search intensified, the focus inexorably began to shift towards the last person who saw them, Christopher Watts himself. This marked the beginning of a grim realization that the picture-perfect family was anything but, and that a tragedy of unimaginable proportions was about to unfold. As the desperate search for Shanann, Bella, and Celeste intensified, so too did the scrutiny on Christopher Watts. While he publicly maintained his innocence and played the role of a grieving husband and father, inconsistencies in his story and his increasingly evasive behavior began to paint a different picture for investigators. The initial searches of the Watts home yielded little direct evidence, but the calm and collected manner in which Christopher gave interviews contrasted with his later, seemingly forced tears, raised significant doubts. Detectives, trained to observe subtle cues, noted Christopher's unusual composure and his readiness to engage with the media. His repeated statements about Shanann potentially leaving him, coupled with his seeming lack of urgency in searching for his children, were alarming. Furthermore, surveillance footage from a neighbor's security camera, initially thought to be unhelpful, began to reveal crucial details. It showed Christopher backing his truck up to the garage in the early hours of Monday, August 13th, spending an unusual amount of time there, and then driving away. This activity, occurring at a time he claimed his family was still asleep, immediately caught the attention of investigators. The breakthrough in the investigation came not from a dramatic discovery, but from the relentless pressure of law enforcement. As the days passed without any sign of Shanann or the girls, the net tightened around Christopher. On August 15th, just 2 days after reporting his family missing, Christopher Watts was brought in for a second, more intensive interrogation. This time, he was subjected to a polygraph test, which he failed spectacularly. Polygraph results are not admissible in court as direct evidence, but they are often used by investigators as a tool to assess credibility and encourage confessions. Christopher's failure on the polygraph was a significant turning point for the detectives.
During the lengthy interrogation, detectives presented Christopher with the mounting evidence against him, including the discrepancies in his story, the unusual activity seen on the neighbor's surveillance video, and the failed polygraph. The pressure was immense. He was confronted with the grim reality that his carefully constructed facade was crumbling. Faced with the undeniable weight of suspicion and the absence of any credible explanation for his family's disappearance, Christopher's demeanor began to shift from feigned distress to palpable discomfort and, eventually, to despair. Under the relentless questioning, Christopher Watts finally broke. In a chilling and fragmented confession, he initially claimed that Shanann had strangled their 2 daughters in a fit of rage after he had told her he wanted a separation. He then stated that in a rage he had strangled Shanann in retaliation. This shocking narrative, however, was quickly dismissed by investigators as improbable and an attempt to shift blame. It defied logic and the known character of Shanann Watts, who was deeply devoted to her children. The true, horrific confession followed. Christopher admitted that he had murdered Shanann, Bella, and Celeste. He confessed to strangling Shanann in their bed after a heated argument about their impending separation. He then revealed that he had driven their bodies, along with the 2 alive but distressed daughters, to a remote oilwork site owned by Anadarko Petroleum, his employer. It was there, amidst the desolate landscape, that he committed the unspeakable act of murdering his own children. He admitted to smothering Bella and Celeste, dumping their small bodies into oil tanks, and burying Shanann in a shallow grave nearby. This gut-wrenching confession not only confirmed the worst fears of the community, but also exposed the unfathomable depravity of a man who had outwardly appeared to be a loving family man. The search for the missing family now shifted to a recovery operation, a grim task that would bring a horrifying conclusion to their story. With Christopher Watts' confession, the missing persons investigation tragically transformed into a grim recovery mission. His detailed account of where he disposed of the bodies led law enforcement to a desolate oil field in Weld County, a site where he worked for Anadarko Petroleum. The discovery that followed would send shockwaves across the nation, confirming the worst fears and painting a chilling picture of his depravity.